Good morning, San Ramon and Danville and Alamo, and don't forget Livermore. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. I hope you're all well and healthy. And we've got a pretty good lineup for you today. Um, just the logistics note here: all microphones will be muted except for the moderators. And for the best view of our slides, click on the view options at the top of the screen and then click on side-by-side mode from the list, and that'll give you the best screen for the meeting. Any questions you have can be submitted anytime using the chat icon at the bottom of your panel, and they come directly into me, and we'd appreciate it. Any questions that you have for Dan, our speaker, we'll get to him. Okay, we're going to start with invocation by our branch's very own God Squad guy, Steve Kolda. The joke of the day is now by the second funniest guy in our branch, Joe Ravello, subbing in for Greg. I'll give you a status of our branch. There's a lot of things that have happened that you're probably fully aware of, but we're going to go over them shortly here. John Noel will talk about the birthday boys and the speaker and events update. Michael Lee will talk about what all the activity groups are doing, and then John will introduce our speaker, Ted Clement. Mike Thalen will then sing God Bless America. Actually, he's going to lip sync it because it's going to be sung by Lady Gaga. So Mike will do a good job on that, I'm sure. Then we're going to have a special drawing of another 3 of our members. We'll be getting $25 checks, and then we'll close the meeting. Like to welcome some new members. We've got 4 of them now, and Ron Biagini from San Ramon, Gordon Gonzalez from Alamo, Brad Inlows from Danville, and I was on a chat room with Brad, and welcome you guys, and Andy Rogers of Danville. So welcome aboard, man, and glad to have you. Like I said, we're now up to about 326 members in our group, which is pretty darn good. Okay, Steve, chaplain report, please.
I have nothing to report. I have not received any information about anybody who has passed away, thank God, or any illnesses. And just a reminder, you can communicate that directly with me so I can send the appropriate cards and make the appropriate announcements at the next meeting. Appreciate that. And I have a friendship blessing, which I found online, which will be our invocation for today. Since we're all good friends, and I really welcome the time that we had before this meeting. So here goes. May you be blessed with good friends. May you learn to be a good friend yourself. May you be able to journey to that place in your soul where there is great love, warmth, feeling, and forgiveness. May this change you. May it transfigure that which is negative, distant, cold in you. May you be brought into the real passion, kinship, and affinity of belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them. May you be there for them. May they bring you all the blessings, challenges, and truth and light that you need for your journey. May you never be isolated, and may you always be in the gentle nest of belonging with your friends.
Great, Steve. Thank you. Oh, goody. This is, as you know, this is my favorite slide. I love these guys. These good-looking group of guys were our past big sirs, and they certainly deserve the respect of our branch. But I got to tell you, these guys are like department store Santas at Christmas time. Everybody likes them, but there's a dark side in their past that we really don't want to know about. So, okay, like to welcome today's speaker, Ted Clement. Welcome aboard, Ted, and looking forward to your talk. And now it's joke time by the second funniest guy in our branch, Joe Ravello. Take it, Joe.
Thank you, John. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, the first story I'd like to tell you about is about this elderly but hardy cattleman from Texas once told a young female neighbor that if she wanted to live a long life, the secret was to sprinkle a pinch of gunpowder on her oatmeal each morning. She did this religiously and lived to the age of 103. And she left behind 30 grandchildren, 21 great-grandchildren, 5 great-great-grandchildren, and a 40-foot hole where the crematorium used to be. So I was, now that COVID thing is lessening its grip, I got out and I was at a party and I ran to a guy I used to know, and come to find out he's divorced. And I said, "What happened?" He says, "Well, last week was my birthday and my wife didn't wish me a happy birthday. My parents forgot and so did my kids. I went to work and even my colleagues didn't wish me a happy birthday. So as I entered my office, my secretary said, 'Happy birthday, boss.' I felt so special, she asked me out for lunch. After lunch, she invited me to her apartment where we went there, and she said, 'Do you mind if I go to the bathroom and freshen up a little?' 'Okay,' I said. So she comes out 5 minutes later with a birthday cake, my wife, my parents, my kids, my friends, my colleagues, all yelling surprise. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the sofa naked.
Thanks, Joe. We've got a lot of new things that have happened with the branch, and I'm going to go over a few of them. But first, I want to give you a little update on some of our scheduled events. And our first outing will be a picnic on Wednesday, August 4th, and John Knoll and his team are putting that together, and they will send you the details shortly. We'll return to the bridges scheduled for Wednesday, September 15th, and we at this point don't know what the bridges is going to do. They'll be open, but we don't know how many people they will have, so or what their limit is going to be. So the details are unknown, and we'll let you know when we get them in plenty of time. So please put those dates on your calendar. This is worth repeating. We did this last month, and we did the state did a vaccination survey, and here are the results. And of the 322 members that were contacted, 163 responded from our branch, which is a pretty darn good response. Thanks for you guys that did that. And of the 163, 161 have received one or both shots or were scheduled at that time to get them. And only 2 refused the vaccination. So we did an unofficial survey of the remaining 159 members by contacting many of them and found similar results. And this basically means that as a group, we're fully vaccinated, almost fully vaccinated, which takes me to our new protocols. And these are changes from previous requirements, and they're mandated by state SIR. And full vaccinations for COVID and the signing of the COVID waiver, which is over there on your right, is required to attend any branch event, both indoors and outdoors, by both members and guests, which includes spouses. Now, this is a change from our first one was indoor only, but now it's both indoor and outdoor. It becomes a requirement for remaining in SIR. And unfortunately, there are no exceptions. Okay. All members and guests, oh, I'm sorry. The original waivers must be collected by the activity leaders or by the BEC members, or forwarded to Alex Moore, whose address is in the bottom of this form. Now, I know there's a number of forms that are out there. This is the latest and greatest, but all forms are valid. So whatever form you sign, whether it's the first one or the last one, they're all valid. Okay. All members and guests are required to show proof of vaccinations before attending any SIR-sponsored event, both indoor and outdoor. Proof includes vaccination cards, letters from your doctor or clinic, or phone documentation, which most of our members seem to have, a photo of the vaccination card. And this proof only has to be shown once, and we will file it and document it. Okay. Members and guests, including spouses, shall adhere to all existing state, county, and local protocols at the time of the activity, and such as wearing masks and social distancing. And as these change, you will be notified. Okay. Now, the state protocols are for the health and safety of all our SIR members as it relates to the spreading of COVID. And if you recall, we've emphasized from the very beginning that as a branch, we are committed to providing for an environment that's 100% safe from COVID for all members. So this is the reason for all of these mandatory protocols. Oh, and a little bit of good news, no dues until January 2022. So there will be no dues collected for the balance of this year. Okay. At the end of our meeting, we're going to draw 3 names from the participation list, and each name will receive, each SIR will receive a $25 check from Treasurer Gerald Suri. So good luck on that one. And John, take it away. John Knoll's going to talk about the birthday boys and the branch awards. You got it, John.
Thanks, John. I like to take a few minutes here to talk about some important events that go on in the branch. And we have some longevity awards. I think this is the largest group of longevity awards we've had in a long time. We have 6 guys here that we'd like to honor for 5 years. Dennis Del Porto, Jerry Hale, Joe Roberts, TJ Thomas, Rick Ulrich, and Pete Wilson. Congratulations, guys, on 5 years with us. We're looking for 25 more out of each one of you, at least. And now our birthdays. Largest group of birthdays we've had. Dan, I'll spare you my rendition of Happy Birthday. It would disappoint all of you. Our speaker schedule coming up, we have June with Paul Stitch, and Paul is going to talk to us about cybersecurity, all the spam and phishing messages we've been getting, and how we can protect ourselves and our finances and our information. And in July, Jeffrey Woglum is going to talk to us about the federal debt and deficit, something that seems to be, well, it has grown incredibly over the last 2 or 3 years, and looks like it's going to grow even more. So that'll be a very interesting presentation coming up in June and July. Now, the special events we have scheduled, John Kent talked briefly about our Welcome Back Barbecue. I have mentioned it before. We got details together. Right now, we've hired Hazy Barbecue of Danville to be our caterer. It'll be a fully catered event. We will have 3 entrees. We're going to have spare ribs, chicken, and brisket. We'll be at the same location we were at last time. It'll be $30 per person prepaid, and Dan will have set up on our sign-up sheets ways to get this prepaid. Same as last year, BYO drinks discreetly, please. We will provide water and ice. By the way, we are in the process of doing a survey, and we've asked a number of you folks to come back to us and answer 5 questions about a membership survey. We've gotten back 174 responses so far, overwhelmingly positive. We're asking all of you to please, if you haven't already, to please complete that survey. It'll be open until the end of September. I saw that on the screen. The end of May. Be open till the end of May. September, we are planning to have our Ladies' Day luncheon at the end of September, the 30th. And we're planning right now our dinner dance. And as we learn more about your responses, we'll be able to tell you more about those plans. Then we have some monthly updates. If you remember back prior to COVID, we tried to do something twice a month, and we're starting to get back to that, but it's difficult because everything we try to book now is outside only. And we had a very successful trip to the San Francisco Botanical Gardens. Over 35 people joined us, and that was outside. And we may end up having to schedule that again because it was so popular. We have 2 dates for the Salesforce Tower Garden Tour, which is a 3-block long garden on top of the Transit Center in downtown, right below the Salesforce Tower. We have 2 dates, June 30th and July 1. And a wait list. That means that if you're on the wait list, we'll probably schedule even a 3rd tour in to get you guys into that. Also, Dan Mahoney has got some virtual tours of Berkeley Labs that you can sign up for, and that's all on our website. And we're looking at more outside events. We have a lot of inside things that we could do, but not a one of them is open yet for our use. So we'll keep you informed of that as best we can, and we ask you to get on our website and look and see what we have planned for you there. And now I want to hand this over to Michael Lee, who will talk about our activities. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, John. Well, on hold at the moment is bowling and bridge, but cooking with John will resume in July in San Ramon. Dine-in is on hold, Friday monthly breakfast, Metropolitan Opera, and movies are on hold along with travel. Meeting virtually on Zoom will be book club number 3, which is currently reading Destiny of the Republic by Candace Millard about the murder of President James Garfield. Fishing Zooms on the 4th Thursday of the month. Members have been to San Pablo Lake for trout fishing. Investing will discuss the pros and cons of investing in real estate and mortgages. My senior fitness program is learning how to use exercise bands to build and maintain muscle without expensive and bulky equipment. We meet on the 1st and 3rd Mondays of the month. STEM, Sir Marston Watson gave a presentation on genealogy and what you can discover about your family history using Ancestry.com. And wine continues to learn, laugh, and enjoy a great glass of wine with fellow sirs and their guests. Well, meeting in person, the Morning Book Club meets the first Monday of the month, and they discussed A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell about an extraordinary woman in the French resistance during World War II. The Evening Book Club will discuss Flashman by George Fraser. This is the story of a flamboyant British lieutenant in the midst of British colonialization of India. Bocce members are playing every Monday at Sycamore Park in Danville. Cycling is planning a field trip to Sacramento to ride along the American River. Dine Out's first lunch in a year is set for May 26th at Pho Saigon Restaurant in Dublin. Fantasy football leagues will be restarting in June, so contact Dan Poland if you're interested. Beginners are welcome. Couples golf plays on May 20th at Diablo Hills in Walnut Creek, followed by a lunch at the golf course. 9-hole golf now has 3 starting times on Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesday, 18-hole golf will play at Bridges, Chardonnay, Dublin Ranch, and Poppy Ridge. Thursday golf has 16 golfers each week at local courses. And hiking will have a moderate hike at Brushy Peak in Livermore on May 28th. Pickleball has people playing outdoors at new locations, while indoor play is getting closer to reopening. Poker Group 1 has had its first in-person meeting this month, and a good time was had by all. Poker Group 2 has also restarted and now continues to meet monthly. And tennis has a group of about 16 players on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at Central Park in San Ramon. So as you know, a lot of things are changing. So for more information about any activity, go to the activities page on our website at sir128.com. So here's John Knoll to introduce today's guest speaker. John?
Hey, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Michael. Guys, first of all, if you want to ask a question of Ted Clement, on your screen, there's a chat icon. It's down at the bottom of the screen. And you open that up and select everyone. If it's not already pre-selected, type in your question. And then John Kent is going to review and get these questions together and present them to Ted Clement. Now, guys, if you ever wanted to have a good neighbor, Ted Clement's the kind of person that you want. If you are ever out to find a good friend, Ted Clement's the person for you. If you ever wanted to have someone help you out, Ted will help you out. He did it for me. We were on a 3-4 day hike on Save Mount Diablo. And the second and third day, I really got my knee all swollen up and not doing too well, was having a hard time hiking. And sure enough, Ted took over for me, took my backpack, kept me interested, and I made it through. Thank you, Ted, for that. That's a brief introduction to Ted from me. He is the executive director of Save Mount Diablo, came to Save Mount Diablo from the Hawaiian Land Trust. He has a background in land trust management and land trust law. And I'd like to have Ted tell us a little bit more about what Save Mount Diablo does. Ted, take it over.
John, thank you so much for that kind introduction. It was an honor and pleasure getting to do 4 days Diablo with you and getting to know you personally. You're a great guy, and I so appreciate the kind invitation to be here today. And hello to you all. I want to thank Joe Vesson for his kind help in making today work, and my outstanding assistant, Joanne McLuhan, for all the great things she does for our organization and today's presentation. So yeah, good to be with you all. I hope this finds you all well, despite these crazy times in which we live. The good news is we're going to talk about really positive stuff today, positive stuff that our community and communities are doing for the beautiful Mount Diablo natural areas. So Joanne, let's go ahead and put up that first slide, please. And let's go to the second slide. So Save Mount Diablo is a not-for-profit land trust formed in 1971 with a mission to protect the important open spaces and natural areas associated with Mount Diablo, including Mount Diablo's critical connection to the larger Diablo range that it's a part of. And I'll talk more about the Diablo range later. So again, we were formed in 71, and back in 1971, there was only one park in the Mount Diablo area. That was Mount Diablo State Park, which you can see in the map on the left. And back in 71, Mount Diablo State Park was under 7,000 acres in size. And our founders realized that the San Francisco Bay Area was only going to be growing, and it's all about quality of life and balance. So they formed Save Mount Diablo. And if you fast forward to today, Now in the Mount Diablo area, we have over 120,000 conserved acres. Mount Diablo State Park has grown from under 7,000 acres to about 20,000 acres now. So Save Mount Diablo, our great partners like Mount Diablo State Park, East Bay Regional Park District, we've protected all these lands shown in green on the right side. And Save Mount Diablo uses various tools to protect land. We use land acquisition, we use stewardship, we use advocacy, we use education and outreach. And through those tools, we've been very effective in helping protect the natural integrity and foundation for our area. But if you look at that map on the right, you can see there's one glaring issue right there in the center where the pointer is. We call that the donut hole. That's out in the Marsh Creek Road area, Morgan Territory Road area. You still have a lot of privately owned open space that's not yet been conserved or developed right in the heart of this huge greenway that Save Mount Diablo and our good partners have been working on protecting for decades. And you can imagine if that gray area in the center went the way of development, wildlife habitat corridors would be broken down, scenic view corridors would be broken down, watersheds would be broken down, we would lose more carbon sinks, etc. So we still have a lot of important work to do. Joanne, let's go to the next slide. So Save Mount Diablo, being a not-for-profit, using these various tools like land acquisition and advocacy, stewardship, education. We're using all this stuff to protect land because land contains biodiversity. These great properties have, they form a very important wildlife habitat corridors. We protect these lands because there are watersheds. They produce certain things and water resources like Marsh Creek or Curry Creek. We protect these lands because they're natural carbon sinks that absorb carbon dioxide, which helps us mitigate against the climate crisis. We protect these lands because they're important for our health and well-being, hiking, trail running, mountain bike riding. They're important educational resources so we can learn about our surroundings. And these lands are also critical for our economy. Like the old real estate slogan, location, 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 we need to keep our area a desirable place to live, work, and visit if we're going to maintain our economic edge. Let's go to the next slide. And by the way, I will try to move quickly through the slides so I can allow plenty of time at the end for any questions or issues you all want to talk about. I always find that the most enriching part of a presentation is just the back and forth. Back in 2017, so just a few years ago now, there was a huge study done of all the Bay Area counties. And the study was focused on which Bay Area county has the most privately owned open space, not yet conserved or developed, at risk of development or available for development. This was being driven by the fact that the state was projecting by 2045, we'd have 2 million more people move to the Bay Area. So the question was, where are they all gonna live? And the study identified that Contra Costa County by far has the most privately owned open space at risk of development, well over 60,000 acres. Now, many of those acres are in very appropriate locations, like around urban centers, but a number of those acres would be inappropriate for development and could really harm our natural environment and our quality of life, quality of place here, our economic edge, if you will, like the area in Marsh Creek Road, Morgan Territory that I was talking about earlier, the donut hole. So Save Mount Diablo is not anti-development, but we are pro-smart growth. You should do development where it's smart and appropriate, but you should not do development to the point where it's eroding our natural foundation that ultimately all human systems rest and rely upon. So places like that donut hole, that Morgan Territory Road, Marsh Creek Road area, we've got to work extra hard to make sure we don't allow mass development there and unwind years of important conservation work. So keep in mind, our county in particular has a bullseye drawn on it. This is where most of the privately owned open space that's not yet conserved or developed is located. And we know a lot more people are supposed to be moving to the Bay Area. So we've really all got to be on our game these days and not take for granted these incredible open spaces, because a lot of them are not protected actually. Let's go to the next slide. So I thought a great way to give you a sense of what Save Mount Diablo is all about in our vibrancy as an organization is to talk about the fiscal year we just completed. And what a great fiscal year to demonstrate our strength and vibrancy because of great people like John Knoll and other supporters. Because this past fiscal year was nuts, to put it plainly. You know, our fiscal year started April 1, 2020 amidst the pandemic. I mean, we literally started the fiscal year right when we realized the world was changing and we had major issues. So we were thinking back in the day, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this fiscal year and survive, let alone thrive? I mean, it was a heck of a time to start a new fiscal year. But you're going to, I think, be very pleased with the results. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things we announced pretty early last year was the signing of an option agreement with the Concord Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association, where we reserve the right and bought ourselves essentially a couple years to raise $1,040,000 to permanently protect the area in red on this map. It's 154 acres. It's right on the slopes of Mount Diablo's North Peak, sort of up above the Clayton area. Incredibly important land. It's not often that you get big opportunities like this to protect the remaining privately owned at-risk lands in the High Peaks area of Mount Diablo. This is land we all have seen, highly visible, highly important for wildlife, scenic vistas, etc. So again, at the start of last year, we were able to announce to our communities that we had just signed an option agreement, giving us time to raise over $1,040,000 to permanently protect this land with a perpetual conservation easement. Let's go to the next slide. And this gives you a sense of just the sheer beauty of this land. Actually, right above this land is a golden eagle nest, just to accentuate how important this land is to the incredible wildlife habitat corridor it's a part of. So very, very special property. And I'm going to report later about our progress with the fundraising because as you can imagine in the pandemic, fundraising has had unique challenges. And we have to have all the funds raised by this December so that we can exercise that option to permanently protect this 154 acres. Let's go next slide. So I mentioned earlier how Mount Diablo is a part of the Diablo Range. The Diablo Range is an incredible mountain range that stretches for about 150 miles from Mount Diablo at the northern tip of the range, way down to Kern County. About 12 counties are part of this mountain range. And think of it like a big artery, an artery for life, for biodiversity, for beauty. So you heard me mention how there's a golden eagle nest above the Concord Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association land we're currently raising money to protect. This is a cool fact. The Diablo Range has the largest concentration of golden eagles on the planet. On planet Earth, the largest concentration of golden eagles is here in our Diablo Range. And the reason is it's a largely intact, undeveloped mountain range that can sustain big creatures like golden eagles. That's why in the Mount Diablo area, we see so many golden eagles. It's all connected to this larger Diablo range that the golden eagles can fly up and down in to forage and reproduce, etc. So the Mount Diablo, again, is the northern tip of this amazing mountain range. And you can see why we spend a lot of time making sure that Mount Diablo does not get cut off from the rest of the Diablo range. How could it get cut off? Essentially overdevelopment. If there was too much development south of Mount Diablo, it could get, in a sense, eviscerated from the larger Diablo range. So we work very hard to protect lands that will keep it connected. And this past fiscal year, we did a lot of education of the public about the importance of the Diablo range. We did it through NBC Bay Area Open Road, that television show. We did it in an insert in a magazine, educational presentations, etc. Let's go to the next slide. So early in the fiscal year, again, it started April 1, 2020, when we knew we had a major global crisis on our hands, and businesses were going out of business. People were getting sick, people were dying. We saw social unrest. I mean, we realized we've got a hell of a fiscal year to try to work through. But one of the reasons we had a lot of confidence about our ability is we've got a heck of a team. We have great staff at Save Mount Diablo. We have a terrific board of directors. We have incredible supporters. So many people love Mount Diablo and its associated open spaces. And we knew we had a good team that could deal with a tough challenge or challenges. And we took that approach. We took a team approach to the pandemic. For example, one of the first things we announced at the start of the fiscal year is that we were going to set a goal for ourselves of maintaining all of our staff positions throughout the pandemic. And we knew that was going to be tough, but that became a fundamental goal. We've got to have our teams back, because great teams are how you do great things and how you deal with great challenges. Let's go to the next slide. So another exciting thing early into the new fiscal year is we purchased Smith Canyon, an entire canyon, about 30 acres for $650,000. And Smith Canyon, which is the slice there in orange, is contiguous with our Curry Canyon Ranch, which is well over 1,000 acres in size. So it was a very strategic acquisition. And Smith Canyon also got us frontage on Morgan Territory Road. Let's go to the next slide. In this slide, you can see how beautiful this Smith Canyon property is that we bought outright in fee simple title near the start of last fiscal year. And this was another great way for us to face all these national challenges that were going on in our country at that time, by saying we're still here and nature is our ultimate foundation. And guess what? We're still doing our critical work despite everything going on. So it was a huge announcement to make early into such a troublesome fiscal year, the successful acquisition of this beautiful land. Next slide. Another thing that we did early last fiscal year that was very smart, we thought, listen, we are a vibrant organization made up of great people, donors, volunteers, staff, etc. Let's push ourselves to actually go further. Let's think about additional ways we can serve our communities during these very challenging times. So one of the ideas we had, which we began doing in April last year, was lighting the beacon atop Mount Diablo every Sunday to help bring our communities together during such troubling times, to remind our peoples to look up to the light, chin up, look up to the light in nature. That's how we're going to get through this, by chins up, coming together. And it was also a way to show our respect and appreciation to all the heroes on the front lines in the pandemic, to let people know who are suffering or who had passed away, that they were in our hearts, and we were sending out that respect to all of them. So we started this Easter Sunday last year. So that was April 12th, 2020. And throughout the worst part of the pandemic, we kept it up every Sunday night. We'd light the beacon and let it shine brightly for our communities to see until early Monday morning, when we'd go up and turn it off. And we did it from April 12th, 2020 to April 12th, 2021. And on the 1-year anniversary mark, when the vaccines had become widely distributed, we thought, okay, now we can step back from this. But we got so many touching testimonials back from community members who would look at Sunday, nurses on COVID wards sending us thanks, and it was just a small thing that we could do to try to support our communities. And boy, we were really touched when we heard from some of the heroes on the front lines how much it meant to them. Next slide. Another thing we did early in the pandemic that was very smart, and again, it's in this vein of pushing ourselves. How do we think of new ways to serve our communities? We developed a Zoom series called Nature Heals and Inspires. And we started this last April as well. So we started the weekly beacon lightings early into the new fiscal year in April last year. And we started this series in April as well. These were free presentations that we do. We typically do 1 or 2 a month, where we would invite experts to explore this topic of how nature heals us and inspires us, because we knew nature was actually going to be an important part of the strategy to work through such a crisis period. So we had ecotherapists give presentations. We had professional conservationists give presentations. We had scholars give presentations, artists give presentations. And one of the studies I remember an ecotherapist talking about came out of Stanford University. Stanford University had 2 test groups. One test group would exercise 90 minutes a day in a gym or out in an urban setting, like on a sidewalk. The other test group would exercise 90 minutes a day, but they would do that in nature, like running on a trail or hiking on a nature trail. And the scientists at Stanford were able to measure that in the group that did their exercise in nature, the part of the brain associated with depression, anxiety was measurably smaller. So science has really proven in many different studies. I just gave you one example, how nature really does help and heal and inspire us. And this should always be a strategy to help us stay healthy and well, not only individually, but as a society. So this series continues to this day. You can go to our website for more information. We have upcoming presentations. You can find these presentations on YouTube as well, and they're really fascinating. Let's go to the next slide. Mid last fiscal year, we did our mid-year appeal, and we had no idea how it would go because just so many people were suffering and businesses were out of business. People had lost jobs, and we still had to find ways to raise money to execute our land conservation mission. And we were, you can get emotional thinking about it. I start to get emotional thinking about it. We raised the most money in our organization's history for the mid-year appeal last year. And that is amazing. And we are so grateful for that. We do not take that for granted, and we really celebrate that. So amidst so many hardships, our community stood up for our mission in protecting our natural world in the largest way they had ever done in our near 50-year history. Just amazing. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things Save Mount Diablo has invested a lot of time and money into the last few years is making sure we get our young people, especially our young wired generations who've always got their phones or always on their PlayStations or computers, that we're getting them connected to nature. There have been a lot of studies, typically called nature deficit disorder studies, that have documented how today's wired generation spends substantially less time outdoors, have a much smaller relationship with the natural world. And studies have shown how this is resulting in young people having increased levels of obesity increased levels of depression and anxiety, increased attention disorders. So we understand at Save Mount Diablo, at the end of the day, love is the basis of good stewardship. And love comes through direct experience with something. So if our young people are no longer connected to the natural world, how in the world are they going to step up for nature in the future if they simply don't have a relationship with it? So we have put a lot of effort into programs like our Conservation Collaboration Agreement program, where we work with local middle schools, high schools, and colleges to get kids out on the land, doing environmental service projects on our conserved lands, spending contemplative journal writing time in nature, developing that bond between young people and the natural world. And we figured out all kinds of cool ways to do that, even amidst the pandemic, where we could keep folks safe, but still get our young people outdoors. And we heard from teachers how helpful that was to their kids. And you can imagine for young people how difficult last year was with everything going on and all the stressful images, stressful news. But this outdoors really helped them. So we were thrilled to be able to do that. Next slide. So we oversee thousands of acres, and our stewardship staff are such great people. And amidst all the challenges last year, we stayed on top of it. We introduced important native species back into the wild. We planted native trees and native plants. We removed invasive species. We kept up our responsibility to caring for our natural lands. Next slide. We have a big annual fundraiser. It's a gala called Moonlight on the Mountain. We typically do that in Mount Diablo State Park up in the China Wall area, for those who know it. And some of you may have been to the party before. It's very special. Well, last year it simply wasn't responsible to get, typically we have about 500 people at the event up on the mountain for a big party in the midst of a pandemic. So we did an all virtual event. The picture on the right is simply a small group of us that gathered at the board president's house, but it was really a virtual event. And we ended up having about the same number of peoples involved, maybe slightly more, because it was virtual and easy for people to be a part of. And we actually exceeded our net revenue goal for the event. We did not bring in as much revenue as we typically do, but our expenses were really low. So ultimately we exceeded our net revenue goal, which we were thrilled about. And this year, I'll talk about it a little bit later, we will be doing Moonlight on the Mountain, and I'll give you a sense of that format. So next slide, please. Another big success we had last year, this was November last year, we put forward Measure T in Antioch to win protections for the Sand Creek focus area, which is on the big picture on the upper part of this slide is the Sand Creek focus area. You see the housing development coming right up to it. And we wanted to see more of that land protected. It's contiguous with Black Diamond Mines Regional Preserve. So we walked the neighborhoods with our masks on, handed out information about why the voters should support Measure T to get more protections for those lands. And next slide. And we won. We won with a 79% approval rating, which is just, you know, most politicians could only dream of winning with that kind of percentage. And just kind of a neat little story. A couple days after the vote, when we won Measure T, a small group, socially distanced group, went out to walk in the Sand Creek focus area to celebrate the victory, and they saw an American badger. Now, many years ago, it was thought the American badger was extinct. It's still around, rarely seen, and it was just really unique that when we were out there celebrating, we had this rare encounter with an American badger, almost as if he was coming to thank us for what we'd done to protect the area where he lives. So that was really cool. Next slide. So Save Mount Diablo, as I've sort of already alluded to, we have a very special relationship with the historic Mount Diablo beacon, the Eye of Diablo. We've been restoring and caring for that beacon for years. And we also, every December 7th, put on a Pearl Harbor Remembrance event. And that's what before the pandemic, that was the only time we would light the beacon, was for the Pearl Harbor Remembrance event. And we do that with our good partners at California State Parks, CSU East Bay, the Sons and Daughters of Pearl Harbor Survivors. Save Mount Diablo runs the beacon part of it, but we put on a ceremony with those partners. And we still have survivors in our area, and they're incredible individuals, and they give presentations. So last year we thought, how are we going to do this? We have to keep the survivors safe at all costs. So what we ended up doing was a virtual event where the survivors were interviewed at a distance so that we could honor this important day in our history. And it was really meaningful last year because, of course, our country got knocked on its rear end on December 7th, 1941, but we came together. And obviously we really showed that when our country comes together, even after a devastating attack like the December 7th, 1941 Pearl Harbor attack, that's when America's at its best, coming together with common purpose, common cause. And so it was really meaningful last year to do this virtually when our country, in a sense, was knocked backwards from all that was going on. So that was great. And Joanne worked very hard on that event, did terrific work. Next slide. So I mentioned how the mid-year appeal, we were quite taken aback, incredibly grateful and humbled to see our mid-year appeal be the largest in history. We repeated it again with our year-end appeal. And, you know, the largest in our almost 50-year history. And to do that on the back of the largest mid-year appeal ever, we just really touched and really, really grateful to see people coming together for this higher purpose and protecting our natural foundation. Really, really touching stuff. Next slide. So we ended the fiscal year on March 31st of this year. So just a few weeks ago. And how would I sum it up? We rose above. We came together. We faced so many challenges, but we ended the fiscal year having substantially delivered on our strategic plan. We maintained all of our staff positions. We completed the fiscal year in the black, deep in the black. We grew and stewarded our reserves well so that we've entered this new fiscal year with strength and a solid foundation. And we could not be more thankful. So let's look forward now a little bit. Joanne, next slide, please. So we just in April, we entered our new fiscal year and we've got exciting plans. One of them is opening our first public educational preserve on our Mangini Ranch property. This is a gorgeous piece of land near the CSU East Bay Concord campus. And what we're going to do this year is we're going to open this property as a free public educational preserve. It is over 200 acres. It's contiguous with the Lime Ridge open space area. Groups like church groups, homeowners associations, school groups, grief counseling groups at local hospitals, an adult photography class, a plein air artist group, any of these groups starting by the end of this fiscal year. We're building it right now, but by the end of this fiscal year, we'll open it to the public. And then any group for educational purposes can reserve it for free for a special day of learning and being with nature. And we're really excited about that. You don't see another preserve like this in the Mount Diablo area, where one group can reserve it for itself for the entire day for educational purposes free of charge. So stay tuned for more details on that. Next slide, please. So I told you about the Concord Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association project near the start of this presentation. That's again the one where we have to raise $1,040,000 to permanently protect 154 acres right on the slopes of Mount Diablo's North Peak. And at the end of last fiscal year, at the end of March, just a few weeks ago, we had $333,000 left to raise to not only complete the fundraising for Conquer Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association, but to also wrap up this larger capital campaign we've been doing for a few years called Forever Wild. And I'm very pleased to say when we entered the new fiscal year in April, we right away started with some robust fundraising to finish up the fundraising to protect those critical acres. We just got a beautiful $100,000 grant from a donor we were able to take up so they could see the land and understand how important it is for that golden eagle, for all the other wildlife up there, and for all the people that look at that and cherish that landscape. So we now have $233,000 left to raise, and we're confident in our ability to protect that land for the lasting benefit of our communities and wildlife and other native species. Next slide, please. A great program that I want to make you all aware of because you and your families may enjoy it is our free Discover Diablo hike series. Now that things are better with the pandemic, this series is open back up. And these are great educational hikes. There's some rock climbing events, some mountain bike events, but mostly they're hiking events where professional conservationists, naturalists will take you out. Some of the hikes are very gentle, some are moderate, some are more difficult, but you can look through the offering, the menu, and pick one that you're interested in. And it's a great way to learn about local flora and fauna, really incredible history of the area. And again, it's free of charge. You may have children or grandchildren you want to encourage to get outdoors more. Here's a great way to do it. Next slide, please. We will continue this fiscal year helping work to protect the connection between Mount Diablo and its sustaining Diablo Range. We'll continue to study the Diablo Range. Remember last year, the big SCU lightning complex fire that burned over 400,000 acres? That was in part of the Diablo Range, much of the Diablo Range. And we're studying the recovery after that fire. And things so far are looking very encouraging. That big fire, there was no loss of life. Very few structures were burned. And the recovery right now is bringing back lots of incredible native wildflowers. And the reason we fared so well in that fire is because, again, the Diablo Range is still very intact. It's still a lot of open space and it hasn't been overdeveloped. So we have to keep that going. Next slide, please. We also have some important advocacy battles we're involved with. Right now, we're challenging the city of Pittsburgh and the Sino development company known as Discovery Builders on a huge 1,500 unit development they're trying to do above the Concord Naval Weapons Station, and lands we advocated be turned into a regional park, which was successful. We are also now fighting developers who are trying to overturn that Measure T victory we had in Antioch last year. So yeah, it always remains interesting. Next slide, please. And our 20th anniversary of that incredible gala I told you about, Moonlight on the Mountain, is September 11th of this year. It will be a virtual event, but because things have improved with the pandemic, we'll have some small satellite parties. We won't gather 500 plus people up on Mount Diablo as we usually do, but there will be a great virtual event that's very entertaining, great auction items, all of that, but also some small satellite parties that people can be part of. You can learn more about this event on our website. Next slide, please. And this year we celebrate our 50th anniversary, which is super cool. We were formed on December 7th, 1971. And so this December 7th, we turned 50 years old, and we're gonna celebrate our 50th anniversary for a year forward from December 7th this year to December 7th next year. This is a photo of our co-founders, Mary Bowerman and Art Bonwell, and we're real thankful they got this great tradition started. Next slide, please. And that's it, we made it. And I think on time. So John, again, thank you so much for inviting me. And Joe, thank you for all your help. And Joanne, as always, thank you for your help. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Oh, great, Ted. Thanks a lot. That's a great presentation. Mount Diablo obviously is important to all of us because it's sitting there looking at us, and we are sitting there looking at it. So it's good to hear your presentation. And,
Thank you,
but
John.
Ted, before I start on the question, there is one clarification that I want to make that came out of the meeting, and we were talking about submitting the waiver forms, and I want to clarify one thing. In submitting these forms, it has to be the original, and this is not a scanned copy, and this is a state requirement that is dictated by our insurance providers. So if you would please submit only the originals of that waiver. And Ted, again, great presentation. Thank you. And I'm going to start out by probably the most important question will ever be asked is, how do we contribute to your program, to specifically the conservation easement? How do we contribute to that? Do you have a website, and are the contributions tax deductible?
John, thank you for that question and the interest in trying to further our land conservation work. Yes, you can contribute. If you're not a member yet of Save Mount Diablo, we certainly encourage you to become one. You can go to our website and make contributions. You can become a general member. Membership start at $35. If you'd like to make a larger gift to our effort to protect the Conquer Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association land, feel free to reach out directly to me at tclement@savemountdiablo.org. You can also get contact information on our website. But we'd be really grateful to have you on the Save Mount Diablo team. I know some of you already are, like John, but we welcome all of you. We've got our work cut out for us. I mean, I'm a positive person by nature, but I also am real. We are in the midst of what many scientists have termed a mass extinction event. We're up to 1 million species are expected to go extinct in the coming years due to pressures like the climate crisis, overdevelopment. We also, of course, know about the climate crisis. So there's some major natural challenges. So now's the time to stand up for the natural world that nourishes us. And we'd love to have you on our team. We'd be real grateful for that. Thank you, John.
Good. None, not at all. And by the way, I'm also a contributor. I have been for about
Thank
5
you.
years. So not at all. I believe in the program. A question for clarification. What is conserved property? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So we conserve land in typically one of two ways. This is in our land acquisition program. We either buy the land outright. So like Smith Canyon that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, where we bought that entire canyon that's contiguous with Curry Canyon Ranch. We bought it outright. We raised the money, $650,000, and we bought it. We're now the owners of that land. So that's one way. Second way is like what we're doing with Conquer Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association. In a situation like that, you've got a great landowner, very responsible with the land, good stewards of it, but they need to generate revenue. And we don't want to see them have to sell that land to developers because they need to generate revenue. What we can do is we can buy a permanent conservation easement from the landowner that will then run with the title of the land forever. And it extinguishes the development rights on the land to ensure it remains open space. So conservation easements are great with a group like the Conquer Mount Diablo Trail Ride Association, which is actually a not-for-profit equestrian group that goes back to the 1940s. Terrific group of people, but they need to generate money. And this is a good way to do it to ensure they don't develop them. It's also a good way to protect ranches, where you have a ranching family that loves the land and wants to keep owning the land and ranching it, but they need to generate some revenue and they don't want to develop it. A conservation easement's a great way to do that. Now, we also use advocacy and education and stewardship to help us protect land, but it's really through land acquisition that we can create permanent protection of land through either buying it outright in fee simple title or buying a conservation easement.
Good. And that leads me to my next question is, wasn't there an effort to get the land between Mount Diablo and Port Chicago?
Yes. So You are talking about the Concord Naval Weapons Station land, I believe.
Right.
We advocated that a large chunk of that, about 2,500 acres, be turned into a new regional park. We
Right.
advocated for almost 2 decades about that, and it was all successful. East Bay Regional Park District, one of our longest partners, now owns that land. They got that land, and in the coming years, they will be opening it to the public as a new regional park. I mentioned the proposed Sino development we're concerned about because Sino's trying to do a 1,500 unit development on the ridge line right above that new regional park. And that could destroy the vistas of the park, the user experience. Parts of that development, if they're on the other side of the ridge line, we wouldn't have a big problem with.
Right.
As it's currently proposed, we're concerned about. But yeah, John, I think you're talking about the Concord Naval
Right.
Weapons Station lands.
Is that weapon station still active? And
No,
how does
it is not.
It is not. Okay. What about all those bunkers that are on the north side of Highway 4? Is that up for sale or purchase or lease?
That is not up for sale, but that's part of the whole redevelopment of the area. And some of that, the city of Concord is looking for a good master developer to do some
Gotcha.
a reasonable development outside of the 2,500 acres that we secured for a new regional park. And there will have to be some environmental cleanup done. Those are old bunkers. There's some
Sure.
contamination. There's some work that has to happen.
Gotcha. How does the John Muir Land Trust and Save Mount Diablo mesh together? How do they work together?
John Muir Land Trust is a great brother-sister land trust. We are partners in conservation. They tend to work on the other side of 680, and we're on the Mount Diablo side. So that's kind of the line for where we focus our land acquisition and other efforts, just so people have clarity and can understand what we're doing.
Okay. The drought conditions, and how does the drought conditions impact the land management efforts of your organization?
In a big way. So I mentioned earlier in my presentation how we have terrific stewardship staff, we have terrific stewardship volunteers, and that's another thing you may want to think about if you're looking for volunteer opportunities, is to reach out to us. You can do that on our website. You'll see a section about volunteers. But we have all these great people that help work on our lands. And with the drought this year, for example, we had to finish our fire abatement work 2 weeks earlier than normal. That was required because there's great concern about fire risk right now. And our great staff finished that up ahead of schedule. But yeah, it impacts us in many ways. Most people say we've seen less wildflowers this year. Yeah, there are a lot of issues coming from that drought.
Do you have budget for fire management?
We do. We budget every year for fire abatement work, and yeah, it's a significant expense. We also recently started a perpetual stewardship endowment fund that we're growing, that once it gets to $3 million, we will only use the interest to perpetually oversee our conserved lands, like fire abatement, planting native species.
Good.
It is expensive, consuming work.
Sure, absolutely. Ted, how susceptible is the land to future earthquakes?
We live in an earthquake-prone area, so that's a very real issue and risk that's always there.
Yep. Do you do anything to plan ahead for that or anything?
We have evacuation, discussions about our office and what we would do in that event. But regarding the lands, not really. No, we just know it's a reality that's always there.
It's going to be there. Yeah, you can't.
It's always going to be there. But we yes, we do talk about that internally because prior to the pandemic, we've got these great people that work in this office, and that is a topic that we revisit. But out on our lands, no, we just accept it as part of doing business here.
That's inherent risk to the property. Good. A couple of questions about hiking. Will there be a Devil Mountain bike ride this year?
To be seen. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But to be seen. You know, it seems that California is really going to start to open up.
Yes.
15th. So we're hopeful, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Another hiking question here is, as a SIR group, can we schedule trail hikes on your land?
You know, once that Mangini Ranch Educational Preserve is opened, I would encourage you to start to reserve some time on that because it's an incredible property. It's stunning, and you'll literally have it to yourselves. So that's the way that preserve is going to work. Our other protected lands, the way you get to go on them is going through one of our educational programs, like that Discover Diablo program I told you about. You can go to our website, you can look up Discover Diablo, you'll see the calendar, and you can identify if there are any of those hikes you're interested in. And then if there's one you like, you can, as a group, try to get as many of your people registered for it as possible. But in terms of, you know, having a property for your group for the day, you're going to have to wait till March 2022. That's our current plan for Mangini Educational Preserve. It will be up and open to the public by March 2022.
Good. Thanks, Ted.
John, I should also say much of the land that we acquire, what we do is we then convey them over to East Bay Regional Park District or Mount Diablo State Park. So they have larger areas for the public to recreate on. So that's in part how Mount Diablo State Park went from about just under 7,000 acres to 20,000 acres. You know, when we acquire lands, we try to get them to our park partners so the public has more lands to hike on and enjoy.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm getting questions from our group as you're talking, and they're coming in, and there's a lot of interest on how to access Mangini. Is that part of the website that you just talked about, or the education?
Yeah, it will probably be done by February, if not early March, but there will be a new portal added to our website for people that want to look at the calendar and availability to sign up for reserving the entire preserve for themselves. So that will be coming up. I'd really start to keep an eye on it in February and certainly by March. That's when we're going to open it. Yes, that part of our website still has to be built and then open to the public, but start to look for it in March.
Great.
Or February at the earliest.
Ted, thank you so very much for hanging out with us and doing this. And I'd give you a standing ovation, but I'm not wearing any pants. But consider it, consider that you did a great job. Now we've got about 3 or 4
Thank you,
more.
everyone.
Well, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're going to keep our website or our Zoom open. And will you be available to hang with us and answer some more questions?
I'd be happy to.
Good. And again, Ted, thank you so very much. Very well done. We've got 3 names pulled for the $25 checks, and it's Guo Fong, okay, Bruce Allen, and Mike
Special
Clement.
drawing.
So
We have
congratulations, guy. Yeah. And wouldn't you know it, Mike is next singing God Bless America. Go for it, Mike.
Okay, are we ready?
Ready.
Yeah, I have to apologize. Lady Gaga had to leave abruptly, so I'm going to do the best I can. Something to do with her dogs, I don't know. But anyway, God bless America.
Oh, am I there? I lost everything here. Am I back on?
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. You're doing much better on those high notes, and we really appreciate it. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the next meeting on June 16th. And hang around for a while. We're going to keep open for about 20 minutes. Ted, again, thank you, and we appreciate you hanging around. All right, go at it, guys.
Ted, this is Mike Levine here. I live over here on Hidden Valley, which is right off of where Macaulay Road hits Diablo Road. And there was a McGee Preserve development that's been approved, but there's been no real movement on it. So in other words, they're going to put in bike paths along Diablo Road and then open up the trails above the site they're going to build on. But do you know when they're going to actually break ground and have plot lines and be able to sell off some of the lots and things like that? Have they communicated with you?
They have, Mike. Yeah, the McGee Preserve project was one that we used our advocacy arm to really help get that measure passed and get that land protected. And probably in the next couple years, start to see parts, if not all of it, open to the public, the parts that were protected. So the good news is there is actually a fair amount going on behind the scenes. We've been out multiple times to check on and recommend best hiking trail alignments. We've actually spent a fair amount of time mapping out where those trail alignments should be, the hiking trails. We've not been working on the bike side so much, but I know others are. East Bay Regional Park District is most of that land. And open it to the public's use and enjoyment. And I know they've been very engaged. They did just get a new general manager at East Bay Regional Park District, and I imagine that may have slowed things a little bit as the new general manager gets up to speed. But I know I've been out for a few visits to McGee Preserve in the last few months, and I know a number of other people on our staff have been out there working on what the best trails will be. So I'm actually really hopeful that we're not gonna have to wait a decade like so often for these parks to open for public enjoyment. I don't think it will be that long of a horizon.
Hey, Ted, this is John
Is the
talking. Could you walk us through the way you can recycle your resources, i.e. you are able to buy some land and then you can turn it over to another entity and recoup some of your investment, and then you go out and you buy more. Could you walk us through what you're doing there?
Yeah. So, John, it's a good question. Sometimes when we buy land that has important conservation values or we acquire a conservation easement, sometimes we end up holding that forever. But sometimes because we're nimble, smaller than these big agencies like East Bay Regional Park District, sometimes we'll see a critical property at risk of development that's contiguous with, let's say, Diablo Foothills Regional Preserve. Where Castle Rock is. And we talked to East Bay Regional Park District. They confirmed they would love to be able to get that land. They just can't move fast enough on it. So then we may engage, do the fundraising we need to do to get it purchased. And then what we'll do is once we have it purchased, We will work with the park agency, the government park agency, where we will convey that land then to the park agency, and they'll reimburse us for the expense of that land. And then we recycle that money and use it for the next acquisition project. Now, John, just to add one little addition to that, because it's been a challenge for us, California State Parks, and some of you may be aware of this, they have not been in the acquisition game now for 15 or more years. And that really slowed things up. They had some financial problems a number of years back, and their acquisition program just collapsed. So we had acquired a number of very strategic properties right next to Mount Diablo State Park. A good example is Curry Canyon Ranch, over 1,000 acres. That cost us over $7 million to buy that land to make sure it's protected. And we thought the state park would work with us. And then it just, nothing was happening. So that was a huge expense, liability, et cetera, that we took on, and they just weren't able to move. We have a new director of California State Parks, and we had introductory meetings with him at the end of last year. He shared his commitment to getting the state park system back into the acquisition business. The governor came out with his 30 by 30 executive order, where the state is working to protect 30% of its land area and coastal waters to address the climate crisis, because these natural lands really are great carbon sinks. So the state parks director, the new state parks director, understands that getting back into the acquisition game can help with that. So we're actually currently in very encouraging discussions with California State Parks about two transactions. One is called the Vieira North Peak transaction, which is sort of in the saddle area between Mount Diablo's main peak and North Peak. It's land we helped protect a number of years ago, but we couldn't get it to California State Parks because they stopped doing acquisitions. And the other one is a good chunk of our Curry Canyon Ranch. So we hope in the next year or two, State Parks doesn't move as fast as we do, but we're hoping we can see those lands go to Mount Diablo State Park. So again, the public has more land area to hike on, to fall in love with, enjoy, etc.
Okay,
and
anybody,
some more money for acquisition too, so that's good.
Here we go, yeah.
anybody have any more questions for Ted? All right, Mr. Clement, thank you very much.
Thank you,
It was
John.
wonderful.
Again,
Very, very informative. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.
You
All right.
also, Ted. Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Great meeting, guys. Great
Oh,
meeting.
yeah, that was good. That was wonderful. I didn't know that they did that much up there.
I've been a fan of St. Mount Diablo probably for the last 15 years or so. I was introduced to him then, and to me, one of the highlights of the year is that Moonlight on the Mountain.
Right.
They take the Saturday night closest to the full moon in September, whatever that is, and they have a flatland on the mountain. They take busloads of people up, and there is a beautiful sit-down linen crystal dinner on the mountain. It's fabulous. And as you can see, the sun setting and the moon rising right there, and you can reach out and grab that moon. It's that close.
Oh, wow.
And they serve
How come they don't publicize that more, John? I've lived here in this area for 26 years and I've never heard of it.
Oh my gosh. I
And I live at the base of Mount Diablo to boot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a relatively expensive fundraiser, as you might imagine, but
Yeah.
And they have auctions up there, and I can't tell you how neat that is.
Yeah.
You have to submit your tax returns to be able to attend, or
The other one that I think this is a much smaller group is the 4 days on the mountain. That was the one where Ted Clement rescued me. My knee gave out on day 3. They have 4 days when you hike on the mountain. You leave on a Monday morning and you come back down a Thursday night, and you hike all day. and they pick up your tent and transport it to the next location. When you get to the next location for the night, there is again a white linen crystal dinner waiting for you. When you walk into the area, they give you towels to wipe off because you've been hiking for 6-8 hours. They give you lunch to pack with you and drinks, but you come in and you have a beautiful dinner with wine and drinks, and then you have to go out and build your tent in a lot they have set up there. You do that for 4 days, 3 nights and 4 days.
Sign me up, John.
Oh, it's
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah. I mean,
Where do you
that
go
should be a
potty?
hiking, that should be a hiking group
When,
event.
when you go potty, you're up in the mountain, and at some point they'll take a break and they say, all right, now ladies, you're over there with a little bit
Yeah.
more choice. Guys, you're over here a little bit more open.
Wow. Wow. Is it true that Mike Sorensen is working on moonshine on the mountain?
That's a good one. And if the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good meeting. Good meeting. Good job.
Michael Levine, I think if you just go on their website, I think you can learn about the Moonlight on the Mountain and about 4 days.
I just posted the link for the 2021
Yeah.
gala. So it's in the chat there. You can click on that
Yeah.
and go right to the webpage.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
good.
know the Feltons, Jim and Betty Felton, and, through the Cal State Ollie program. And I think they're pretty active in Save Mount Diablo as well. Do you know them? Betty and
He's a member, isn't he? Isn't he a member of a city?
no, but he's he's not. But we had a wine group event where we visited their Sky Terrace winery for tasting and a look-see at how they do their winemaking at their house. Remember that?
I remember that one, Michael. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they do a lot with Save Mount Diablo. You're right. You're absolutely right. They do.
And
Guys,
they
I'm out
probably
here.
were
Joe, if you can
He was
just take
probably
over.
instrumental in that land acquisition of the Mangini Ranch because it borders that Cal State, East Campus, right on Ignacio Valley Road. Have you guys ever been out to that campus?
No.
It's right over the Concord Walnut Creek line. You come over the rise. You got Lime Ridge. You pass Lime
yeah.
Ridge, and then it's got a beautiful little campus there, and you look at it, and that is prime real estate. I mean, the views if you go up on that, yeah,
Is that off of Ignacio Valley Road?
Yes.
yeah,
Oh. Okay.
yeah.
Joe,
yeah,
take
right
over,
past-
buddy. I've got to leave.